Today, as we look at another version of freedom from fear and error thinking, we really want to expand on a little bit subject matter called if the blind leads the blind. Just a little subject matter. Just a little subject matter. I want to thank Beverly for reading the inspirational reading this morning because it had quite a bit of insight about the blind leading the blind. Reverend Catherine Sachs talked about her own activity in terms of being judgmental and not trying to be judgmental. What Ernest Holmes is sharing with us in this particular portion of this month's theme has to do with his belief that Jesus was a very wise man, really wise, full of wisdom beyond anyone else that we've known, simply because he's talking about the psychological aspect of what really happens to us. When you look into the Bible at Matthew 15:14, Jesus makes this statement to his disciples. And if the blind leads the blind, then they will both fall into a ditch. Ernest Holmes says that we should look at a psychological analysis of what that whole statement means. And in my dealing with this, looking at it from another perspective, I looked over in a companion expression of that same scripture, and Jesus asked his disciples, can the blind lead the blind? Can they lead the blind? If the blind can lead the blind, then they both fall into a pit.
That's where the blind can lead them, into a pit.
Into the pit. But what does that mean for us today? When we look at those two scriptures in terms of its comparison with our principles, what it is we believe, we just read one that's really important. We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete emancipation or complete freedom from all discord of every nature. And that goal is sure to be attained by all. But what is so significant here is that in the psychological expression of this, Ernest Holmes is asking us to consider not only the conscious mind, but to consider the activity, the knowledge, and all of that stuff that's in the subconscious mind. Because the subconscious mind is the bank of everything, everything that has happened in your life, all of it. So he gives, Dr. Holmes, an example of if a person goes to a physician for healing, and he starts talking to that physician, and that physician identifies that the person has the same condition in mind, a mental or emotional condition in mind, that that person is dealing with, then you need to get rid of that physician because he's been triggered, or if she's been triggered in that same manner. And if that person has not been healed, both of you will fall into the ditch of despair. Oh, so another way of saying that is, if I have been on the job working with my coworkers and I get betrayed by one, and I have not healed myself of that betrayal, and someone comes to me and they say, oh, I've been betrayed, help me get through this, my responsibility as a practitioner really should be, I really need to do prayer work around myself first to see if I'm able to assist you. And secondly, I may need to refer you to another practitioner because I'm not well enough to help you with that. That's what it looks like. It does. You know, don't lie to yourself and think that you can help someone through spiritual mind treatment around an area where you're not healed yourself. Jesus said, physician, heal yourself. And another thing that I read that Jesus said was that, how can you tell someone to get the speck out of their eye when you still have the speck in your eye? It just does not work. It does not work. So what we're dealing with today is that whole thing. How do you get free? How do we understand what my role is, how I'm supposed to be, how I can tell the truth about a condition such that I can get free of this fear and free of this thing that's really holding me back. It's causing me to be limited. Dr. Holmes is really sharing with us that when that kind of condition happens, that we have an emotional bias around that thing. So if you have experienced betrayal or some other thing, whatever it is, if you experience something that's caused you to have a mental block, I think it's important for us to try to the best of our ability through the tools that we have to relieve ourselves of that block. First of all, start telling the truth about yourself in that situation. Don't lie to yourself. And if you still feel that you need support in terms of becoming free of this thing, once again, go to a counselor, someone that can help you through it. There are many support groups that are available for people that are experiencing challenges. But here is what the Spirit of Life would say to us around this. When we have a mental block, we're exhibiting that limitation. We are operating from a place of ignorance. We are denying the truth of our divine nature. Because what we are not remembering is that we live in a unity. This whole creation is a unity. That I am you, you are me. We're all here together as one unity. So when I am harboring something against you, I'm harboring something against myself. When I'm harboring something against myself, I could be harboring that same thing. If we match up, we kind of like know one another. When that thing is going on, we know one another. So we can't heal someone else without taking care of our stuff first. That's what we as practitioners do when a client comes to us. We listen. We have open ears to hear what you are presenting in terms of your condition. But as we go through that, working with you, you too must have an open mind to receive that healing. Don't say, no, I'm not taking that class. No, I'm not participating in that workshop. It's like, wait a minute, I created this one just for you. I created it just for you. And I made it a workshop so that anybody could come so that you would see you're not alone. You're not having a unique experience in the universe, that there are others that have similar things going on and they too can benefit. How is it that we really learn to be what I consider experts in the art of prayer? How do you do that? How does that come about? It comes about with doing it. Having a nice talk with the infinite Spirit of life, God. Having that talk. I've always said around my own life, if I am ever in a position where I can't speak or do something for myself, call a mother in the Church of God in Christ, Christian Science minister, and a religious science practitioner. Because I know those three definitely know how to get a prayer through. Why? Because Prayer is a constant factor. It is something that's done not only on a daily basis, but it's done more than once a day. There is a cultivating of spirit, a cultivating of the relationship with spirit, a cultivating where you know that the divine presence is right where you are, such that when you look up and say, I lift my eyes to the hill from whence cometh my help comes from the source of all life, the source of all good, the source that is the creation. I get it. I receive it. And you know what your divine relationship is. You know when you are in the presence of the infinite power of life. You know it. No one has to tell you, oh my God, I feel that mental atmosphere around you. And I know that's something different. That's a beautiful energy. No, you know for yourself that you're in the very presence of spirit. Now, I just love the fact that we have this cute little story about 3 blind mice. 3 blind mice. Well, we're not going to deal with the 3 blind mice. We're just going to deal with ourselves. We're going to deal with telling ourselves the truth. And we're going to be thankful for telling ourselves the truth, because liberation, spiritual liberation, emotional liberation, mental liberation begins right here within you. Now, I am standing in appreciation of all of the other counselors and other pathways of understanding spirit and working with spirit to support our life. Many of us need that. Many of us do that. We need that to help get us to the next level. Spirit says, let's start where you are. But as you start where you are, and that's the key thing, start, then you're able to grow. If you look at anyone who has experienced addiction problems, whether it's food, drug, alcoholic, sex, it doesn't matter. If you have experienced any kind of addictive behavior, you have to start with being honest and truthful with yourself, knowing that it exists within you and you're ready to do something about it. And you have to be faithful in the steps that you take to do something about it. So what am I saying in this? We can't fix others if we can't and won't fix ourselves. We should not judge and condemn others if we can't fix ourselves. We can't. No matter how upset other people and their mistakes, their sin, their missing the mark irks you, it just won't work. It won't work. You have to release and let go and give it over to the infinite spirit of life. I'll never forget how I literally suffered through the purchase of my first car and having my husband to have an accident and tear it up and it was totaled. Oh. That was a hard thing for me. A really hard thing. But guess what? I had to get myself right. And I had to take my eye off of him. And, I told him to go to his mama. I did. You have to go home. You can't stay here. You go to your mama. You killed my first car. I worked so hard for it. But yet there were other things that was going on with me. I couldn't fix him and I couldn't fix myself at that time. But, through prayer from my mother and all of the other people that knew us, all came back together in a wonderful way. But it happens. It can happen. But I had to let go of my trying to fix things. So What else can we pull from if the blind leads the blind? Any thoughts about that from you? Any thoughts? The blind leading the blind.
We're having someone who's blind leading our country.
Well, yes, we do have that, and I really appreciate that because Dr. Holmes also reminds us that when you see a person who will tell you that they have the right answer, as Reverend Catherine Salk says, I'm always right, I have the answer to everything, blah, 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 listen to me, anything else, forget, I can fix it all. That person has a situation where they have some kind of emotional bias. Emotional bias, can we say?
Or cause it superstition.
Or superstition. But the point is, when we see that, we still have to remember that that person too is one in the unity of God. And that's the hardest thing for us. We have to grow in love. Beverly, you know, you have personally been through situations that cause you to rise above and just love. That's why so many people like you and come to you, because you exude that love no matter what. You know, I appreciate things that you have shared with me. They haven't been the intimate things of folks' lives, but you continually demonstrate that love of God. Maybe you have the gift of love in you. It's wonderful. And we receive it. How do we transfer that to someone else? The only thing I know to do at this point is to begin to just bless that individual. Bless them. I bless the integrity of your being. I bless the divine nature that is within you. I bless knowing that you too are in the wholeness of God. I bless and know that your wholeness is resident in the infinite spirit of life. I bless and know that it is the will of God that we all come to the knowledge of truth. I bless and know that it is the will of Spirit that you have a great life, a good life, that you find happiness just as everyone else will have a great life, a good life, and find happiness. God has not made anyone to be a king or an authoritarian over anyone else. We are all equal. Why? Because the scripture said God is not a respecter of persons. What the scripture will tell us is that God gave all of us gifts. He gave some the gift of administration, the gift of love, gifts of this and that. We all have gifts. And since everybody does not have the same gift, it means that when we come together as a unity, we individually contribute our gifts to the whole, and all is well and complete. All is well and complete. That's what it looks like. So I want to bring this to a close to let you know that if the blind leads the blind, you'll fall in a ditch. But when you take the time to open my eyes, just say it to the Spirit, open my eyes that I may see the fullness of truth thou hast for me. That's for you personally. What is the truth that God has for you personally in your situation? Ask the Spirit that. Ask it. Open my eyes that I may see the fullness of truth thou hast for me. Place in my hand the wonderful key that unlocks me and it sets me free. So silently now I wait for thee. Ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes and illumine me, Spirit divine. With that, let's go then.